What's good, friends list, episode 120 of the Gamecast coming at you. With the success of franchises like Pillars of Eternity and the new fan favorite, Outer Worlds, Obsidian is looking to really make a splash with its first true Microsoft-published project, Avowed. So, while we've gotten a glimpse at what Obsidian's second team is working on with the Outer Worlds 2, fans have been eagerly awaiting for the same with the fantasy-heavy RPG, and it sounds like it might not be too much further off. So, this week, we examine new details pertaining to Obsidian's upcoming RPG fantasy adventure, and how it's looking to potentially be part of an unprecedented wave of yearly RPGs from Xbox Game Studios. Does the shadow of the Elder Scrolls 6 matter as much as some once thought it would in terms of the success of this game? Will the rumored 2023 target be that tangible given its supposed pre-alpha state? We slash into the details. Also, Eidos Montreal sets a new bar for the work week in the games industry. Bungie is once again vaulting some pretty critical content with Destiny, and much, much more coming up on the newest jam-packed episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Richard.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and of course PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So, wherever you get a podcast at, subscribe to us, rate us, review us. If this is your first time jumping in, make sure you do all of that. All that jazz. I tell people every week, but week, whatever it is. But I tell people that every week. If you're new to the show, jump on there. If you like us, subscribe to us. If you don't like us, sure, shit, I don't really care. You can review if you wanted to. I'd rather you're not, but hey, whatever. We take the feedback. And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games alike, and our dope giveaways. I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, my partner in crime, my co-pilot, Mike P-Pack. Mike, it's that time again where every week I ask you, and I have another feeling of what you're going to tell me, but we also didn't play a lot of video games this weekend. Well, we did. We kind of did, but...
Well, in a different capacity.
In a different capacity that usually revolved around drinking in some sort, but... In general, though, in the time you did play video games, I gotta ask, what's good, what's going on, and what have you been playing? Where are you at with Diablo Resurrected 2? Because Diablo 2 Resurrected, I should say. Because I feel like the conversation around that game's now become a little bit sour.
Yeah, it's kind of going to be a different conversation. I know I've been pumping the tires on this game for the last few weeks. Unfortunately, it's kind of taken a turn for the worse. There's a lot of different speculation going on what's happening. But basically, it seems like every morning at about 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the servers will go down. And they go down till about... Sometimes it's all the way till noon. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different speculation on why the reasoning could be or what the reasoning is. But by and large, there's a huge conglomeration of people that are pretty, upset with the way that this game has been run, because basically Blizzard will just tweet out every morning like, oh, we're aware of the issues with logging in and we're investigating it. And that's great and all to kind of just give us that heads up, but people are starting to get pretty sick of it because it's not like it's like a one-time thing or a release day thing. It's been every morning this week has been the same story. And there's a lot of different speculation going around. I'm not really going to give any of it that much credence because it's really not worth talking about, but I will say that the only hypothesis I've seen that really makes any sense is someone brought up the point that seems to be about the time that people in China get off of work, and maybe that they shut down our servers because there's such an influx of players from that region. And then after that point in time, our servers aren't able to ever recover until the people in China are no longer allowed to play anymore since their time is limited from the government. So I don't know if that's true or not, but Nevertheless, I mean, there's something fishy going on, and they're not really giving us a whole lot of answers. There was a little update done today on it, but I will say that, like, for someone who was giving this game all kinds of praise, Blizzard needs to get their shit together, because sometimes the best time for me to play recently has been in the morning, and I'm just unable to play. And, I mean, it's not like like I said, it's not a one-time thing where it's like, oh, no big deal, servers are down, they'll be back up, and then it won't happen again. It's been like a regularly occurring thing, which is a huge problem in my opinion. So hopefully they get their shit together and they get it figured out, because I know a lot of people on Twitter are pretty upset, and they're also denying refund requests because
I did see that.
Yeah, basically they're considering the fact that if you've owned the game for longer than 3 days, it's unrefundable, which again is like another thing that's basically completely unacceptable in my opinion, because the game is, I mean, you can say what you want, oh, single player is working, then just play single player, but it's like, I have put time into online characters. I have a character that's a level 88, I have a character that's a level 74, and now I have a character that's a level 46, and they're all online, and I'm not going to start new characters offline when I've been playing online. So it's been a battle for Blizzard to keep this shit going, and I don't know what the reasoning is, I don't know what the problem is, but again, as far as the game's concerned, there were issues, there were flaws, people were willing to look past it. Now it's getting to the point where it's becoming a lot to overcome as far as fans are concerned, and I don't blame people that are trying to refund it. I was considering it myself, because it's just like, I don't understand what the fuck, like, what could be the problem here. But at the end of the day, the game is still fun. I still enjoy it. But the problem is, you can't just expect people to continuously play your game here and you know, accept that you won't refund the game when they can't even play it. Especially for people that are like, I saw people saying like, oh, I'm on second shift, so the only time I can really play is in the morning, yada yada. So like, again, it's just, there's a lot of people that are being negatively affected by this. And again, it seems like Blizzard can't get out of their own way with this bullshit. And I don't mean to start off the show on a negative note, but for journalistic integrity, I wouldn't really say that this is a journalist show. I mean, it's a media show. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But I like to try to stay,
you know?
Yeah, I like to stay kind of legit, and like to give you guys honest to goodness like opinions, because I don't want you people thinking that we pump the tires on certain companies for any reason or the other. And I've been pumping the tires on Blizzard even though they've had such negative shit happening inside of their company recently. Well, I'm not pumping the tires anymore. In fact, if you haven't purchased the game, I would consider maybe even waiting until they get this figured out, if they can give us a reason. If it is because people from China are overwhelming the servers because they only have a certain amount of time and you're owned by Tencent and whatever the reason is, like, I don't really care, but at least tell me, like, hey, you guys can't play in the morning. Like, at least that's a better answer than it just going down and you just like giving generic tweets out saying like, oh, the servers are down, we know. It's like, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? You haven't told us that yet.
No.
And as customers, some people are defending Blizzard, which I don't know why you would ever be in a position where you would actually defend them. But like, some people have been like, well, they don't even have to give you a reason. It's like, no, you're right. They don't have to. But we also don't have to give them our money.
True.
And we can, we can do a lot of different things as consumers that'll, speak for how we feel. So that's all I got on that. Unfortunately, a great thing. I wouldn't say great. A very solid thing that had the potential to be great has unfortunately taken a turn for the worse, and we'll see what they do. But going forward, still playing some Diablo 2 Resurrected when I can. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with it going forward. I guess this is why they haven't had a ladder series yet. So I guess that's a good reason, because people were wondering why the ladder wasn't out day one. Well, the game doesn't fucking work. So this is another situation where, another note that I just wanted to cover real quick. I know I've taken a little bit of time, but I will say that, like, again, you had a beta that only worked till Act 2. Maybe some of the optimization in Act 5 could have been answered if you had people test it. Maybe you needed a little bit more Q&A testing and more stress server testing. I don't know, but again, another company drops the ball with quality assurance that we're going to see play out with Halo Infinite, just like we saw play out with every single game that's server based recently. Every new game that comes out, the servers don't ever work, and all the developers are like, "Oh man, crazy!" and all the fans are like, "Wow, that's insane that the servers are being overwhelmed." It's like, no, I could have told you this was going to happen because you didn't properly test it, which is why Halo Infinite is tested during certain play trial periods, because they want to try to overwhelm these servers, because on day one that's what's going to happen. So maybe their Q&A as far as servers are concerned will be okay, but the game itself, whatever. We'll move on to another topic, because kind of a negative way to start off the show. I feel bad that's kind of how we're kicking off this week, but it is what it is. I just wanted to let you guys know the truth, and I don't want you guys to, discredit me and say, "Oh, that Mike, he's full of shit. He just loves Diablo 2 so much he's blinded." I'm not. Trust me, I'm not.
Wow. Tell me how you really feel.
Hey, I got to keep the journalistic. Like I said, while we're not journalists technically, I feel like there's a certain bit of integrity that we need to uphold here at this podcast, and I try to do just that. I mean, I'll be positive on games when they deserve to be positive, and I'll be positive on companies when they deserve it. But at the same time, I'm not going to hold any punches just because we're an Xbox podcast. If I think Microsoft is full of shit or doing dumb stuff, I'm never going to, even if it were to cost us sponsorship deals down the road, obviously to a certain extent, I'm not going to mince words because a company is paying me money to do so. I just won't accept the money because it's unacceptable to me, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I get it. I totally get it. Well, to try to change the mood, I guess, and be a little more positive, on my end, played a handful of different things. I've been kind of wanting to figure out what I want to sink my teeth into. I've been playing stuff on the PlayStation side. I've been playing stuff on, Molly and I have been going back through and playing Resident Evil 8 again. She's been wanting to do that for a while now. So we've been playing through that again, and we're still, pretty damn early in the game. We're only on Castle Demistru, so we're kind of just taking our time with that every night or so, chipping away at it. But yeah, playing a couple of different things on a couple of different systems for the most part. But I have been wanting to jump back into a few games that I'm slowly starting to dip my toe back in. One of them being Prey. I've been wanting to go back in and play Prey and actually commit to finishing it, because I enjoy my time every time I jump in and play that game. But it's literally I end up not for a bad reason, but stopping literally right around the same time and never get further because another game comes out or something like that. And I always want to go back to it, and then something comes out. So I do want to get back to that. I do want to play that. What else? Oh, I've been having the urge to get back in and play more Faz. Same with Valheim, but more Faz than Valheim, and I was even going to mention that to you tonight because I would like to play Faz. But I
think there might be a stream in the works tonight. I don't know for sure yet. Don't quote me to that, but I think that might be in the books for tonight. So we'll probably it's Spooktober, so
right, it's
definitely Faz time.
Right, yeah, it might be time to jump back on the old horse, back on the old wagon. So, but no, it's that moment where I'm we're right in the midst of about to be the craziness of the year, and really get a lot of the big time hitters. Obviously, Halo Infinite coming out, in less than a month. So it's right around the corner kind of thing. Stuff like that's coming out. Battlefield's going to be coming out. I also too another thing that
did you play any of the beta of that?
No, which pisses me off because I totally forgot about that.
Was it this weekend?
It was, I think so. I know
we were a little busy, but
yeah, but it was one of those things that obviously I had much more pressing things going on with my social life and shit like that. But but I did want to get in and actually try it. I heard mixed things about it. There's a lot of people who are yeah, the premise and everything that they're promising this time around with Battlefield has been fantastic, but the game just isn't in a state right now that people are feeling comfortable of, hey, if this is a representation of what we're going to get, not even a month out at this point, I'm a little worried kind of thing. So, it's, I get it, but it's also a build supposedly from, I think it was early September. So that's a lot of time in terms of polish and bug fixing and Q&A and everything like that. So I get it, but at the same time too, I understand people's, hesitation with that too, getting a game that was so close, especially too, when, at least personally to me, I saw progress in optimization and everything with, going from the first tech preview with Halo Infinite to week 1 of the second one to weekend 2 of the second one, and seeing the actual actual progress that was made with optimization and how that game was getting to a state where I'm like, man, this is running really well on my PC now. And I have a pretty decently hefty PC, and when I'm struggling to get 60 frames on it at points, with the first build, to then getting 100 and being able to fully, flex with my machine a little bit is great. So, hopefully on that end, a lot of the people who are having performance issues with Battlefield are able to kind of, take a step back and look at saying, hey, a lot can happen between these times. There's a huge team with DICE working on this game, I'm sure, with the Q&A optimizing it, but in general, it's point being, it's that time of the year where it's we're right in the midst of about to be hit with 6 games coming out at once. Back 4 Blood being out now, I've been waiting to jump back into that. It's on Game Pass and everything like that. So I want to get in and grind that a little bit, but there's only so many hours in the day. Plus 2 with my classes and stuff for 3D modeling. It's trying to find time because I've been kind of heavy into those. But point being though, I got a laundry list of games I want to finish by the end of the year, and I need to really start chipping away at that. But with that being said, Mike, I think it's time we head into Button Mash. If you're new to the show, Button Mash is where we go over the quick hit news for the week to get you set up and ready before we head into our big topic. So, kicking off Button Mash, we start with a recent major update for the enhanced version of Quake. Yes, the original Quake brought a number of changes to the game, including improved analog input controls, aim smoothing, and various other general tweaks. However, one detail that wasn't highlighted is that now it's possible to play the game using mouse and keyboard controls on consoles. And even though this isn't a direct Microsoft thing, that includes a Nintendo Switch, which I thought was fucking awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, so there you go. If you don't have Quake, go pick up Quake. It's dirt cheap, especially if you're on console and whatnot. You can play with mouse and keyboard. I mean, that's not too foreign to a lot of people who are playing the game, or playing a lot of first-person shooters on consoles now. Most both hardware and software, and both allow for mouse and keyboard input for the most part. But in general, no, it's still pretty sweet. Fans shouldn't expect too many big content drops from Madden 22. Speaking with IGN about Madden 22's rocky launch, executive producer Sean Grady discussed the roadmap for Madden 22 and beyond, saying new modes aren't the priority right now. Quote, I would say the roadmap is probably slightly less ambitious than years past because we are really focused on a few core areas of Madden 22 and also getting started up on Madden 23 in a big way, Grady says. So, I will stand by what we've always said the last couple of years. We're a live service and will continue to update the game, but we're definitely not going to be talking about a brand new mode. Epic Games has finally acknowledged that Fortnite's Cloak and Dagger style Imposters game mode was inspired by Inner Sloth's Among Us. As part of a blog post detailing the game's latest patch, Epic Games noted a number of changes to its Imposters mode, while also clarifying what influenced the concept's initial inception. Quote, version 18.20 brings improvements to Imposters, the game mode inspired by Among Us from Inner Sloth, reads the post. Despite Epic's acknowledgement at present, this seems to be the only nod towards Among Us. As reported by Eurogamer, Imposters' in-game description hasn't been updated to include a reference to Inner Sloth's game, a factor that some fans may still find disappointing. Epic Games also is reportedly considering making a Fortnite feature film as part of the company's plan to expand into wider media. A report from The Information claims that discussions have already taken place over the prospect of a Fortnite film adaptation. Those talks have also reportedly formed part of a broader conversation at Epic about the possibility of, quote, launching an entertainment division focused on scripted video programming as a way to diversify the studio's brands. Fall Guys, which is technically another Epic game, the platform battle royale game developed by Mediatonic and originally published by Devolver Digital, Travis. Devolver Digital. You've played a ton of their games. Just read their name. Devolver Digital. May try to revive a scrapped level concept due to the popularity of Squid Game. Yes, the Netflix show. During an interview with TechRadar, lead game designer Joe Walsh spoke about the difficulty the team faces in coming up with new concepts for the game, and how many level ideas end up being scrapped compared to those that make the cut. During the segment, Walsh talked about one discarded concept that the team may actually still revive based upon the immensely popular Netflix's South Korean survival drama Squid Game. So keep an eye out for that. Turtle Rock.
Still haven't seen that, have you?
No, I've been wanting to, but it's one of those things that it's like each episode's like an hour and 15 minutes long, and it's like, listen, I'm not against that, but I'm almost caught up with The Walking Dead. I want to get caught up with The Walking Dead, and then I could start committing to more and more TV shows, but like, it's one of those things that's like an hour and 15 minutes, man. That's why I love Ted Lasso. In and out, baby. Give me those half-hour episodes of just pure bliss. Like, god damn it. Like, I thought, 45 minutes to me is long for, a quote-unquote hour-long TV show.
Between that and, like, I guess You is going to be coming out and Stranger Things, like, Witcher in December.
Yeah, Witcher will be coming out, which is incredible. Stranger Things, I doubt it'll even come out in 2022. I won't believe it. That shows, I fucking love Stranger Things, but this, we don't know when it's going, these kids are going to have a goddamn mortgage and, like, 6 kids whenever the fucking 4th season comes out. Like,
they're gonna have to recast the kids with like younger versions for scenes. Probably it's gonna be weird.
Yeah, and I mean they could probably do it, and they could make the universe work or whatever, however you want to look at it. But it's just the point of being like, I get these kids are now hot commodities, and they're doing tons of incredible work too. Millie Bobby Brown's in a ton of stuff. Finn Wolfhardt's in a ton of stuff. So it's one of those things that it's like I get it, but people are ready for the next chapter of this show, and it's going to be a 3-year gap between seasons. It's like, come on now. And I know that there are more chapters of a book than anything, but at the end of the day, it's like, come on, man. That's a lot of people subscribe to your service because of that, and Netflix has unlimited amounts of money. Like, make it happen, kind of thing. Anyways, though, Turtle Rock Studios. Let's talk about Back for Blood. Struggling today.
That's all, folks.
Yeah. Turtle Rock Studios, the developer behind Back for Blood, has acknowledged community frustration around the game's lack of progression in solo mode and is looking at ways to make it more rewarding. As spotted by Eurogamer, the developer thanked fans on Twitter regarding their feedback on solo mode before explaining that it is looking at different ways to remedy the community's concerns. Quote, "We've heard your frustrations about progression in solo mode and are discussing ways to address this issue," said Turtle Rock Studios. "Thank you for your patience and feedback at this time. We'll have more news as we strategize on potential ways to make it happen," end quote. Speaking of The Walking Dead, The Walking Dead's Rick Grimes has joined Fortnite during its Fortnitemares 2021 event. While Rick is appearing in Fortnite for the first time, he's joined in the item shop by returning The Walking Dead outfits inspired by both Daryl Dixon and Michonne. While Rick can be purchased by himself for 1,500 V-Bucks, the 1,900 V-Bucks Rick Grimes bundle will also get the player the Sheriff's Duffel Bag back bling, and the Crashing Satellite Glider, and the Walker Club pickaxe. So, if you're like me, you love The Walking Dead, and you want to get Rick in Fortnite, and more importantly, obviously, Daryl and Michonne, go over there and grab it. After many, many leaks, Mike, Rockstar Games has officially announced the Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. That's the one thing I hate.
How easy that was?
Yeah, I mean...
Just say it's coming.
I was going to say, more or less, I hate the fact that this is Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. It's just like, dude, just be like Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, Definitive Edition. Why is it the Trilogy, the Definitive? I don't know. I'm just weird, I guess, and that stood out to me. I was like, what the just... There's too many does. Just goddamn it. Anyways.
Yeah, whoever was in the design, whoever was in talks with that, definitely dropped the ball. Also, in my opinion, but
yes.
I don't get paid to do that, so.
Yeah. Anyways, though, it's comprising that we've talked about for so many weeks now: Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. The updated games will be released on PS5 and 4, Xbox Series X and S, and Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC via the Rockstar Games launcher later, quote unquote, later this year. Mobile ports will follow next year. All 3 games, quote, will feature across-the-board upgrades, including graphical improvements and modern gameplay enhancements for all 3 titles, while still maintaining the classic look and feel of the originals. More details will follow in the coming weeks. Rockstar has not yet confirmed if the games will be released as a single package, as individual titles, or both. The existing versions of all 3 games will be removed from digital storefronts next week. So, Rockstar also announced that the games will come to iOS and Android in the first half of 2022. Big Resident Evil news here, Mike. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, one of our favorite games in the series, has become the first game in the series to ship over 10 million copies, Capcom confirms. As announced in a press release, Capcom says that Resident Evil 7 has set new milestones for the company as it becomes its first game in the series to ship over 10 million units globally. It's worth pointing out that the shipped copies are those sent to retailers as opposed to sold copies, which have been bought by players. According to the studio, the game's impressive figures have largely been down to the promotion of digital sales and synergies with the series' latest installment, Resident Evil Village, which launched in May. Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics have added the option to pay for XP and resource collection boosts using real money in Marvel's Avengers. The move has been slated by many fans who believe it offers a stark contrast to previous statements made surrounding the game's monetization tactics. Marvel's Avengers' recent addition to Xbox Game Pass is likely to have brought a range of new players to the game. For pre-existing fans, however, news of the game's move to the new platform was shortly followed by the more troubling reality that its in-game marketplace now offers players the option to purchase boost-based consumables using credits that can only be acquired through spending real money. And finally, Bungie has announced that the Destiny 2 Forsaken campaign will enter the Destiny content vault earlier next year. Players can still access the content until February 22nd, at which point the campaign, as well as the Tangled Shore destination, will leave the game. This is the same day as the launch of Year 5 of Destiny 2, which also includes the Witch Queen expansion. Bungie says Forsaken's departure also makes way for new features including weapon crafting, a legendary difficulty campaign option, a new weapon type, and more. So, after all that, Mike, anything you want to run back and button mash before we set our sights on the big topics and news for this week?
Yeah, if you haven't played Resident Evil 8 yet, and you are a fan of Resident Evil, I mean, it's different than Resi 4, but like, it's the most like it that I've played. So if you are a fan of Resident Evil 4, please play that game. If you haven't been spoiled on it, hell, even if you have been spoiled on the story, it is worth a play. Trust me. Very fun game, and play it at your own pace, play it at your own difficulty, whatever you want to do. It's a lot of fun. I will say that I played on whatever the hardest difficulty is that you can play off right off the rip, because they won't let you play the hardest, which is whatever. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was relatively difficult. The ammo, you have to be a little bit more strategic with the ammo use and creation and stuff. So if that's the kind of challenge you're looking for, by all means. It seemed like the easier difficulty was a little bit easier. There was a lot less managing those sorts of things and health potions and whatever. You got to experience the story a little bit more, so that's the difference there. And I mean, the Marvel's Avenger announcement is just a little bit, it's just kind of interesting, because it seems like a game that doesn't have that big of a player base as it is should be a little careful with what they do with their player base. But it is what it is. I mean, I guess seeing all these people, and by all these people I mean just like seeing all these companies struggle with these monetizations, I guess nobody's learning the lessons from each other, and they all want to make the same mistakes. I guess it's part of growing as a company, so we'll see what happens going forward with it. But that's about all I wanted to cover from Button Mash. And EA with Madden, like, yeah, lol, like, color me shocked. EA's having an issue with a game release. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's been well documented. I mean, realistically, I don't ever see. If you ask me, until EA eventually, and I might even say inevitably, changes the model to just truly being a live service title where you buy the base game of Madden and you get X amount of players, per year that you get for that year. Would you shush? Abby's trying to get on the podcast this week, I guess. I think it's just because Molly just got home. But until they truly go to, hey, you're buying a platform and then you're going to buy roster updates throughout the year, expansions, yada, yada, until they move to that model, I think they're going to struggle to kind of fit the mold of what AAA third-party sports games look like right now, in general. And you kind of see that be answered on the baseball end with
at least the show, now that it was coming to a Microsoft platform, it was right to Game Pass. Things like that make that a little more of a less barrier to entry to be able to invest in the ecosystem more. And I think we're going to see struggles with that in all sports, not just Madden, but FIFA, same with NHL. Like, it's just going to be a struggle. Outside of that, though, the one thing I did want to bring up, though, of course, I have to talk Destiny. This is my biggest problem with how Bungie is handling Destiny, and it's the content vault. And I don't dislike the idea of the content vault. I dislike the idea of how the content vault is implemented with critical lore-based info or lore-based portions of the game that... Oh, do you want to give your opinion? Okay. No? Okay. But that it's critical lore-based content for... Now that it's a free-to-play game. Let me put it this way. Now that it's a free-to-play game, there's more and more people coming into Destiny every day than ever before. I mean, you look at even looking at the Trials of Osiris statistics, more people than ever are getting into Destiny in general. So, with that game being no barrier to entry at all, and granted, you need to own, the actual expansions to be able to play the game. But point being, then, okay, so if I bought. Say I bought, which I have, I bought Forsaken. That's going away now. My money just was burned. To me, even away from that end, if I'm a new player jumping into Destiny, and I'm like, man, you know what? I really like the concept of Destiny. I really want to get in. I really want to learn about this game and sink into it. People talk about how cool the universe is now that, Destiny 2 kind of was able to flesh it out and give an actual, basis to the lore. The original campaign's gone, and now its second biggest campaign and probably second most popular campaign in Forsaken is going to be gone. So people are jumping into what looks to be, this is going to be, really, if you're talking about the lineage of Destiny 2 alone, you're going to be losing 2/3 of the content in terms of the campaign for what? Just to know what the fuck's going on in the story of Destiny. Like, you can go and play, like, look at how many games like WoW and Elder Scrolls Online and things like that, these big MMOs that are based around, hey, we have like 20, in WoW's case, we almost have 20 years worth of content here for you to jump into. And sure, we've adapted the model of it. Sure, you can play to, level 20 now, and you can kind of play through the intro missions and stuff, and we have a condensed version of that more or less, but you're still able to go and get the fucking content. Like, you're able to go and get that game and play that game. Yes, now that they're independent, I get it. You don't have Activision's full backing or whatever you want to call it, and, we want to make sure Destiny isn't 200 gigabytes on your computer. So we want to, vault some content. Listen, I get it, but at the same time, too, vault like some raids. Vault some. You look at how some of vault some weapons. Be like Fortnite does. Hey, we're putting this weapon in the vault. It may come back one day. And granted, those are lower pieces of or smaller pieces of content in terms of size, but at the same time, that stuff, one, still adds up, and two, that isn't like fucking critical to understanding the game and being invested in this fucking game. Like,
right.
It just really, really, really is frustrating as somebody who loves Destiny, who loves that universe, and, loves what Bungie has built, especially now being independent and really getting to start to implement the full vision of Destiny of what they want this to be. It's just like, there has to be a balance between, hey, we want to keep doing what's right for our long-term players while also fostering a community and a game that is welcoming to you. If you're just walking off the street and want to play this game for the first time, you can, and you can come get the full version of this, like the full, slate of this game, and not feel like I have no fucking idea what to do.
Yeah, and not saying like because of this, like because you are self-admittedly late to the game when it comes to Destiny, like not trying to say like, oh, your opinion matters more than others, but like you're someone who went through the struggle of like getting into it very late. So like not saying like anyone should take your word more so than anyone else's, but I mean, you kind of are in the right, you're at least in the right boat to have this type of opinion. And like, you know, the only thing that like I can really add to the Destiny chatter is like the exact same thing happened with me and whatchamacallit, Siege. I bought the game for $60 like the first day it came out. I don't know if you remember, but like now if you buy the game, it's a lot different and you get a ton more free content and free like operators. And they never gave me any additional credit. They never gave me the operators. They just said, oh, you're going to have to buy the operators yourself. Sorry, you bought it early. So I've like literally just never played Siege again because I was like, all right, fuck you. Like I already spent $60 on your game. Anyone else that spends that much money now today, and this is like, what? How long ago did we play that? Like 2 years? This is like years ago. Like if other people are buying at the exact same time and they're getting triple the content as me, I'm just not going to play your game. Like if that's how you want to play it, fine, have it. I don't want it. And like, again, not saying like that's the same, it's not the same situation as Destiny, but like, again, that's the type of message that like Avengers and Destiny sends to its consumer base. And maybe other people feel differently than I do, but like I know I can't be alone in saying like if you bought Siege day one and didn't get the operators, like you should probably be pissed too.
Yeah, there definitely should be some, incentive for people who invest into the, an experience like that. And same with Destiny, who, yeah, I bought all the expansions. Yeah, I've done all of this. Like, I want to take advantage. Like, now that you're getting rid of that and I'm losing something, at least give me like a skin or something like that. Like,
yeah, make it up to me just a little
right.
bit. Right.
Or like in your case with Siege, now all these operators are free. And I agree. I've bought in like yearly passes and shit like that. And now some of those operators are free. And it's like, I'm all for, holding the bag in a sense to expand the player base, but it needs to be done in the right way. And that's the same with Destiny. I'm all for expanding the player base, but it just needs to be done in the right way. So, anyways, though, Mike, we're getting along in the tooth. Let's head into our actual big topics for this week, even though some of those were big, I guess I should say, to us in general. But let's head into our big topics for this week. And we got to kick it off with talking about an Xbox exclusive that we actually just kind of talked about, a week ago, week before that, something like that. And that, of course, is Avowed. Yes, the fantasy RPG that's coming from Obsidian Games, or Obsidian Entertainment, I can't remember which one it is, but Obsidian, famed developer of course, Fallout New Vegas and Pillars of Eternity, and most recently, The Outer Worlds, and of course, too, Grounded, I should say, but most people now these days put them in, kind of, hey, The Outer Worlds kind of thing. But their big fantasy RPG that was revealed last year at the Xbox Game Showcase, that a lot of people were like, hey, that's going to just be, hey, we're not getting Elder Scrolls 6 anytime soon. Cool. Obsidian seems to just be stepping in and being like, cool, we'll make our own. And we'll use the Pillars of Eternity universe and stuff like that. So we kind of seen that game go radio silent for a while. We got one trailer out. It was a CG trailer. Bada bing, bada boom. Gave you at least a glimpse of what this universe is going to look like for this game. It might be a little bit further along than people think from what it sounds like. And Kat Bailey over at IGN has a really good write-up about this that kind of pulls from Jez Corden's original write-up over at Windows Central. I'm going to link both of those in there. There's just a lot of information, a lot of great information that Jez pulled out. But Kat kind of summed it up really well that I think works better for the show in this format and yada yada. All that. But both will be put in the description down there. So definitely go give Jez a click as well as Kat. More importantly, Jez being the one who wrote that, but also give Kat a click as well because she does a nice write up on that in general. So, anyways, let's jump into it and talk about how Avowed reportedly has destructible environments and is, quote, deep into pre-production. So, a little more than a year since its original announcement, we still know comparatively little about Avowed, the new first-person RPG from Obsidian based in the Pillars of Eternity universe. However, a new report by Windows Central appears to shed light on the project, revealing that it's well into pre-production and that it will, quote, feature many elements Pillars of Eternity fans are familiar with. They reportedly include familiar spells such as Jolting Touch and Fetid Caress, and as well as creatures like Zarips. I also have not played Pillars of Eternity, so I'm sure I butchered all of those. But anyways, though, the report repeatedly compares Avowed to Skyrim and Oblivion, describing it as, quote, undoubtedly Obsidian's take on the Elder Scrolls. It may go as far as to include destructible environments with spells leaving areas, quote, coated in flames. Avowed is reportedly still in pre-alpha and is not yet playable, but Obsidian is said to be making steady progress. The report speculates that Avowed could be in a playable state by E3 2022, but that date is currently unconfirmed. Assuring it's all correct, it sounds like Avowed will be sort of a deep open world RPG that has been characterized of Obsidian's efforts over the years. A direct descendant of Black Isle Studio, Obsidian is best known for its work in Fallout New Vegas and Knights of the Old Republic 2, both of which have become beloved classics over the years. Avowed was first announced back in July 2020, where it was presented as evidence of Microsoft's growing first-party muscle in the run-up to the launch of the Xbox Series X and S. Little has been revealed since then, suggesting that Avowed is indeed still quite early in its development process. However, it turns out, both Avowed and The Outer Worlds represent Obsidian's renewed push into AAA RPG space after a prolonged absence. Prior to being acquired by Microsoft, Obsidian had been focusing on smaller projects such as Pillars of Eternity and Trilogy. Apart from Avowed, Obsidian is currently working on The Outer Worlds 2, which was announced during E3 2021. Both games are set to be released on PC and Xbox Series X and S, and neither have a release date as of yet. But this is a little tidbit pulled from the Jez Corden original write-up that supposedly right now what he's hearing, and also Jeff Grubb has also heard this as well, in terms of the internal release date for Avowed is supposedly 2023. So, so we both, Mike, kind of recently brought up the situation with Avowed and Elder Scrolls, given the state of Microsoft owning Bethesda and ZeniMax now. But it's interesting to really see where this game now stands apart from its RPG counterpart. But even more so, where this game really kind of stands in development. With the fact that, and I think to Jez, I was kind of following up on some tweets by him and whatnot, that he really means more pre-alpha, not necessarily pre-production. It's some development studios take pre-production in meaning it's just like any industry in any business, would take, different traditional traditional steps of the business on how they handle things, pre-production, production, post-production, concepting, yada yada. It's all kind of, plug and play and the lines of where it ends and starts are very gray line, but I think he means more pre-alpha. This game isn't in a fully playable state right now, that there's a build of this game out in some fashion. There are parts and chunks of this game that are being put together and eventually going to be sewn together to get a quote-unquote alpha out. So I think it's a little past, what he was saying was it's past more pre-production, but more pre-alpha, that there is active work being heavily done on this game to get it in a playable state within, the next year, from what it sounds like. So, Mike, what do you think of these early reports? What do they say to you about Avowed? Will deeper RPG roots of Pillars of Eternity speak to a larger audience that I think Microsoft really seems to be hoping for? And also, too, maybe this is me, and maybe this is just because, I've been, over the past, 5 or 6 years, becoming more ingrained into what game development means, and also, too, trying to start doing that myself in a manner. Doesn't 2023 seem like quite a quick turnaround for a game that's not even in an alpha state of this scope, being a large open world RPG with, that leans heavily on, its now, I guess, co-workers or colleagues in the Elder Scrolls series and Fallout, leaning into that? Really, doesn't that seem like a quick turnaround?
Yeah, I mean, you hear about we kind of talked about it briefly with EA and how Madden is kind of having its fair share of issues. And then we talked about how, games are just going to need to go to a little bit more of a development cycle where you develop one game for 4 years. And then after that, you can make some updates and tweaks and things of that nature. And the biggest reason being is 1 year is just not enough time anymore with the technology that's out there for game developers. And to get the the game that they want out. It just doesn't seem like enough time. But here we hear about the news with Avowed, and it does sound like it should be a lot further along. I don't understand. I'm not like well versed in game development. I've said that a million times on this show, and I'll say it a million more. Like, I'm not an expert on the subject matter, but I will say that it does seem relatively quick for a game that doesn't even have a playable state. So for Obsidian, unless they already have a design and an engine and everything in place that they're going to use, like they are going to be probably pulling some overtime or something to get this game out. But if that's the way the reports are going, I would be surprised to hear that there's not any playable version of this game right now. And I'm not saying that people are lying or people aren't being honest, but it just seems like crazy to me that a game of potentially this magnitude, which, by the way, everything you were saying, quick aside, gets me so hyped up for this game because I really need an Elder Scrolls game, man. I just need one so bad. And it's good for Bethesda too, because it's gonna push them and say, hey, like, if you guys don't have what it takes to make these games anymore, hey, we got someone who does, or we got a development studio that does. So that's important. But yeah, I mean, 2023 isn't that far away. I mean, we're already, holy shit, it literally pains me to say we're in month fucking 10, halfway through month 10 of 2021, which means 2022 is right around the corner, which means you're talking about maybe 2 calendar years. Like, if the game were to come out in 2023 of October, you have 2 years to get the game out. It seems a little bit far-fetched to me and unrealistic, but again, I've said it 4 or 5 times already. I'm going to say it again. I'm not well versed in game development, so I don't know.
Oh, and neither am I. Neither am I. But it is really interesting to think about this game in the sole fact of, like, this game seems to really be, or it was at one point, hey, this is how do I want to put this? This is Obsidian's, like, I don't want to say coming out party, but this is being billed as the game, and I believe this is an actual statement from them themselves, but that this is the game that Obsidian has wanted to make for a long time, but didn't have the scope, the scope of this game, what they wanted to make in general with this game, but didn't have the resources, the budget, the staffing. They didn't have the resources available that Microsoft is now able to give them. And when Microsoft said, here you go, what do you want to do? They said, we want to do this game. So to me, this is being billed as really a crown jewel. And what I think is really, really fucking interesting about this could be the start of what is looking to be, like, potentially, obviously, who the hell knows, really, like, a yearly cycle for Microsoft in being, hey, we're going to have a big, meaty, high fidelity, however you want to put it, AAA, first-party exclusive RPG available for you once a year. 2022, Starfield. It's already, granted, now if that doesn't get, obviously, COVID's a thing still, very much still a real thing. And
we maybe seen more of Avowed than that game, by the way.
We've probably seen, well, to be fair, with Starfield, at least everything that we saw was in-engine. This was in-engine, this was shown. Avowed was at least, we saw more of a cinematic from them. We saw probably more of a proof of concept for what you're actually doing than Starfield, but we saw more of what the actual game can be represented in what you're seeing in Starfield. But point being, who knows? Starfield may fall or may get bumped to 2023. You don't know. But from what it looks like right now, Starfield 2022, Avowed 2023 potentially after that, Fable 2024. And so on and so on and so on. I mean, we're eventually going to see the Outer Worlds 2, which was revealed at E3 this past year. So it's going to slowly start.
We're supposed to see the Elder Scrolls,
and eventually we're going to get the Elder Scrolls 6. I fucking hope so one day. And you got to think too, Bethesda is a multi-team studio in general. Bethesda in general is it's multi-studioed, but within Bethesda Game Studios, Bethesda proper, quote unquote, if you want to call them that, still. But in Bethesda Game Studios, there are multiple teams within there. So we have an Elder Scrolls team, we have a Fallout team, and sure, there's probably now, I guarantee at this point, the team the Fallout team working on Fallout 76, that team is splintered off at this point. There was I guarantee the team that is working on Fallout 76 at this point, while still there are multiple updates being done to that game regularly. I mean, they just put out, what is it? Fallout Worlds, the Fallout Worlds expansion, which a lot of people are saying is great. Like, I kind of want to jump in and play it. So, because I love Fallout, but I'm much more of an Elder Scrolls fan at the end of the day. But point being, though, that game, there's definitely not the amount of emphasis being put on that game as at release. So that team is splintered off, kind of, I'm sure a 25% of that team's probably working on that, content updates and planning for the future, yada, yada. Main focus, obviously, being Starfield. Smaller team off of that's working on Elder Scrolls 6. And then there's probably 10% that are starting to, hey, what's the next Fallout look like? What's after that? What is next for Fallout? What's Fallout 5 look like? So, it's not crazy to think that Microsoft has just set themselves up to just have a slaughterhouse of just RPG goodness. I mean, at least on paper, that is. It's crazy that we could potentially be seeing one every year, a Elder Scrolls-esque level of RPG. And I say Elder Scrolls, I'm just throwing that out there because when most people think of, popular, over-the-top popular first-person RPGs or just RPGs in general, fantasy-based, sci-fi-based, whatever have it, it's usually Elder Scrolls Fallout. So, and now we're starting to see Obsidian say, well, fuck that. If you guys don't want to do what most fans of those, long-term fans want to do of that, we'll give you those traditional experiences that you had with, Fallout 2, 3, and New Vegas, and we're going to give you that, with the Outer Worlds, and you're going to get that with more pen and paper approach to that, while also having, still the gunplay that you like and everything with Fallout, but with Avowed, we're going to give you that, maybe more of a arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind. Like, we're going to give you more of that experience, and in Oblivion too. I'm sure they're going to put Oblivion and, Skyrim elements into that to make it more casual friendly, but it seems like it is going to be this is an RPG, not an action RPG. This is going to be more of a role-playing experience. I could definitely see it being more in line with, like, Kingdom Come Deliverance, which I would totally be fine with. Maybe not over the top, like, European, like, I don't want to say European high fantasy, but more so European medieval, like, it's going to be obviously more fantasy-based than that. So, like, but the sole fact that we can be running up on, I mean, that would be getting into where Sony masters, and this is somebody who just fucking loves video games in general, plays on every platform possible for the most part. I don't own a fucking Sega Saturn, but I own all four platforms, I guess. Switch, PS5, Xbox Series X, and a PC. Like, I play on everything. Sony mastered the fucking third-person, narrative-driven, titles. They just fucking mastered it. There's nobody who does it better. Nintendo is I personally think, still the master of, we give you the most polished experience possible in video games, and our quality is, while wavered in some areas with, side project or spin-off games like Mario Party and things like that, our Mario games and our Zelda games are unmatched. Our main franchises, you were getting some of the most pristine experiences in gaming, most polished experiences in gaming that are slowly starting to evolve. But nobody matches with that. I think we're about to see Microsoft get in that conversation of, hey, what Microsoft is known for, yeah, we got great games like Halo, or great franchises like Halo, great franchises like, hopefully Perfect Dark, but Microsoft is going to be on paper right now, if it looks and it all pans out and they have the resources to make these games as strong as they like to think so, and as a lot of people like to think that they will, that they're going to be the home of RPGs. They're going to be the home of Western RPGs. They're going to be the home of when you think, hey, I want to play an RPG. Fuck, I'm a big fan of RPGs. I have to get an Xbox. Not, yeah, I like RPGs, but I play mostly on PlayStation, so I'm just going to get that. Well, there's going to be a reason why you buy an Xbox. And a lot of those people, I think, are going to be, yeah, I just want to play an RPG. Like, I need to play it. I need to get an Xbox because it's going to be that level. And I'm not one of those people for play on whatever fucking console you want. Like I said, I own all of them. So, like, I'm right there with you. But it's the sole fact of, like, exclusives.
That was the biggest complaint of pretty much everyone.
Yeah, it was.
Xbox
Oh,
One,
the Xbox.
right?
Yeah, the Xbox One. Xbox doesn't have exclusives. Xbox doesn't have high quality exclusives. Xbox doesn't have an identity. Xbox doesn't have this and that. It all centers around the software that is put on this system. Well, now they're gonna have it, and on paper at least, anything could be possible. All these games could fucking flop. It is very, 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 very possible that could happen. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think 75% of them are probably going to be review really fucking well because they have incredibly talented studios working on these incredibly, built up and fully thought out ideas. And Microsoft has shown that they're not afraid to delay a game, aka their launch title that is supposed to push their new next-gen system, aka the biggest fucking franchise in their history, said, no, we're going to delay it. And not just we're going to delay it, a month. We're going to delay it over a fucking year. So, Microsoft's shown that they want these to succeed. They're committed to the software end, not just the hardware end. And I know for sure that one thing is, just looking at this lineup, I am very happy that one of the systems I own is an Xbox. Because if I am going to, granted, I play a lot of first-person RPGs on my PC. First-person games in general, I like just playing mouse and keyboard because it feels so natural. But I still will play them on console, obviously. But I can't wait to sit down and be like, I have Game Pass, I have all this. Like, I know that if I ever want to play an RPG, I damn well better have a Game Pass subscription because if not, I'm going to go fucking broke. Like, trying to buy all these great RPGs. Because you're like me, and Adam's just like us. Like, that's one of the genres that all kind of tie us together is RPGs, especially ones that are either sci-fi based or high fantasy based or, kind of in the vein of Elder Scrolls, Fallout, everything like that. So all I know is looking at what this potential timeline looks like, looking at what Microsoft has in the pipeline on a yearly basis moving forward, potentially starting next year with Starfield. I feel like we could be looking at truly the first time where we say, hey, this is Microsoft's identity. Hey, this is what we're going to know Microsoft for moving forward. And it's going to be RPGs. And it's going to be other things too, but I think that's going to be hey, if you love RPGs, you got to get an Xbox. Just like, hey, you love games with great stories and a cinematic approach, you got to get a PlayStation. The Last of Us. Uncharted, Ghost of Tsushima, what else? Spider-Man, one of my favorite games of all time. So, like, I know that I need to have a PlayStation to play all those games. As much of an RPG fan as I am, like, I'm going to need to make sure, like, and I'm just speaking in general, I'm going to need to make sure I have an Xbox because looking at that and looking at the RPG offerings on console elsewhere, yeah, if it's a JRPG, hell yeah, I'm going to buy a PlayStation because or have a PC or a Nintendo Switch. Like, I'm probably going to get those experiences. But living in the US, somebody who plays a ton of Western RPGs, looking at what's coming out, all of the big tentpole RPGs that are coming out, Western RPGs that is, they're under Microsoft's banner. Like, I'm probably going to play those either on PC or my Xbox. So I got to make sure if I want to play them on my TV, in a native way, not streaming, I gotta get an Xbox. Like, and that's not console war bullshit at all. That's just saying, like, for once we're gonna have an identity of be able to point to, for the first time in a long time, because it was first-person shooters, especially first-person shooters, or shooters in general, multiplayer in general.
Yeah, since the fall of Fable, really.
Yeah, Microsoft is going to have, at least Xbox Game Studios, I should say. Xbox is going to have an identity, if all goes according to plan in their eyes, with, and I think it is purposefully, RPGs, because they've seen how well RPGs do, not only in sales recently, but specifically on all of their ecosystem. Like, platform-wise, it pairs really well with high-end hardware sales. Like, it does really well with, PC audiences, which Xbox has leaned so heavily into over the past couple of years, saying like, hey, anything that comes out on Xbox comes out on anything that comes out from Xbox Game Studios or is first party with Xbox is coming out on PC as well. Like, it just all makes sense. It talks to the same audience. They know how well a lot of these RPGs do with, social media or, digital content in terms of streaming like YouTube and Twitch and everything like that. This just makes sense. It's about to be potentially, hey, every year we're going to get an RPG, just like every year we get like one major, third-person narrative-driven game from Sony that performs super well, reviews super well. We may see that in Xbox wearing an RPG shirt. So I'm super excited about the future for that. I really, really, really like that we're starting to potentially going to see a really big payoff potentially with not only Starfield next year, hopefully, but then Avowed potentially the following year, Fable potentially after that, and fucking one day I sure as hell hope the Elder Scrolls 6. But point being, there's a lot to be excited about from an RPG standpoint, and especially with Avowed. I think Avowed's going to really scratch that itch for a lot of old school RPG fans, CRPG fans, especially the ones who may have been burned by games like, Cyberpunk. Like, they were hoping for that more, immersive experience. I think this is going to really kind of scratch that itch for a lot of people with high fantasy and, things that the Elder Scrolls has kind of drifted away from a little bit, that have made it more, while more open, also made it the ability to be more streamlined if they wanted to. And I think this leans more into the open than the linearity that the Elder Scrolls kind of went down a little bit. And what we're hoping that they kind of balance out again with the Elder Scrolls 6, but who the hell knows? I'm excited though, nonetheless. So, Mike, let's head into our last news article for this week. And I think it's a really important one to kind of highlight because I think in an industry that is all we hear about is crunch, all we hear about is the negativity in the workplace anymore, with all the shitty things that are happening with Activision and Blizzard, all the shitty things that are happening with Ubisoft and sexual harassment. It's great to see a positive story that comes out that a lot of people, I think, really have latched onto, and that is development studio Eidos Montreal under Square Enix, which a lot of people know, developing Guardians of the Galaxy that's coming out here, is switching to a 4-day work week. So this comes from Ian Carlos Campbell, over on The Verge. As always, link in the description. Eidos Montreal and its subsidiary Eidos Sherbrooke are switching to a 4-day work week, the game developer announced on Thursday. The Square Enix-owned company is currently working on the next big Marvel video game adaptation, Guardians of the Galaxy. Quote, the initiative is another step towards the embodiment of the studio's values, building a healthy, creative, and sustainable work environment for our employees, studio head David and Fosse writes in the company's blog. The idea not to condense the working hours into 4 days, but rather to review our ways of doing things and our quality time invested with the aim of working better. Eidos Montreal says that both studios will be closed on Fridays in the next few weeks. Quote, without changing the working conditions currently in the place nor the salaries of employees, thus switching from a 40-hour work week to a 32-hour. The company isn't entirely clear on how it plans to adapt the new structure, but suggests one change would be implementing shorter meetings. Re-examining work schedules and work-from-home policies have been a welcome change brought on by the pandemic. In the context of the video game industry, it's notable because of how frequently employees are expected or forced to work overtime themselves to hit deadlines. There's no guarantee a shorter work week will prevent crunch from happening, but it does at least bake in more time when workers can expect rest. So, like I was saying, for all that we hear about crunch culture and the ways to combat it and all the shitty things that we hear in the workforce, it is refreshing to see a studio take large-scale action to stray away from entering crunch time as much as possible and really kind of say, hey, we need to make sure our mission statement and our core values aren't just, in an employee handbook. Like, we want to make sure we're actually embodying those and being a place that we want to see people say, yes, I want to work in the games industry and I want to work at Eidos Montreal or Eidos Sherbrooke, or, Eidos in general, because they not only, respect me as an employee, but they also embody what I want to see out of my work and support me creatively, yada, yada, all that good stuff. So while the concept, of the 4-day work week is really being proposed in a number of industries in general, Mike, does it make sense for the games industry, and how could this impact game development timetables, if at all? Do you think this is something that we're going to see more studios kind of tout and say, hey, we're moving this way to prevent crunch, we want to be a pillar in doing this, yada, yada? Does this make sense for the games industry, and do you really see this having an impact on how developers really kind of develop games and, internal timetables and just the development cycle?
Yeah, this is something that I'm pretty passionate about, actually, as far as workers' rights in general, but moreover, labor union, not even labor union, just labor rights in general. Kind of got me thinking, and it got me to do a little bit of research. I'm pretty sure, I know France is like crazy. Nobody ever works in France. They only work 4 days a week. They work 6 hours, but they take 3-hour lunch breaks in the middle of the day to just sit there and drink wine and just slowly eat a little bit of food. France is just a different world. So we'll push them aside just for the time being. But I think what I want to bring up, and, relevant to the topic in consideration, we have a study, and I'm getting this directly from Forbes online, Jack Kelly, his article. I can link it, so we can link it below. But basically, a lot of different people, Forbes, BBC, wrote about how Iceland adopted a 4-day work week. Mm-hmm. And what they found was productivity and service provision remained the same or improved across the majority of trial workplaces. Worker well-being dramatically increased across a range of indicators from perceived stress and burnout to health and work-life balance. The trials also remained revenue neutral for both the city council and the government, providing a crucial and so far largely overlooked blueprint of how future trials might be organized in other countries around the world. Nearly 90% of the population has reduced hours or other accommodations in Iceland, and it seems like overall people have really benefited. Now, this is very opinionated. I don't have any hard number facts for you guys. There might be people out there that are like, well, can we get numbers on it? Because people out there might be into that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I don't have that for you. But the bottom line is this. There is less and less time for people, especially with cell phones, work emails, mm-hmm. work computers. There's increasingly less and less time for people to have on their own. There's increasingly more traffic everywhere you go, especially when you work in the city, for you to get there. So now your commutes are longer. Mm-hmm. There's been less and less time given to individuals to have freedoms to live their life, to do hobbies, to do other things. This is a really good step in the right direction. I'd love to see them go to a 6-hour workday, because I'm pretty sure there's some countries that have implemented a 6-hour workday along with the 4-day work week. Mm-hmm. I know people out there are going to be up in arms saying, well, what the hell? When are people supposed to work? How are you supposed to get shit done? Look, if you've ever worked in an office, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm going to speak for me. I might be speaking for you, Travis. If you ever worked in an office, especially one that you commute an hour to, mm-hmm. what's the first hour of your day? Oh, let me get a coffee. Mm-hmm. I'm a little tired. You pour a coffee. You see your buddy, you see your coworker, talk about the football games on Sunday, or if you're in Europe, you talk about the football games at the water cooler, whatever. Mm-hmm. Now, next thing you know, it's been 45 minutes. You've had some sip of coffee. Oh, you know what? Caffeine affects people differently than everyone else. I better run to the bathroom. Now you're in the bathroom for 10 minutes scrolling through your phone. So the first complete hour of your day has been a waste. Now the next hour is a staff meeting, which people for 40 minutes ask the most mundane, dumbass questions that should never be asked. Nobody wants to know it but them. And they're holding everyone hostage because they're asking these dumbass questions. So now all of a sudden, 2 hours of your day shot, boom, just like that. And then guess what? You get closer to towards the end of the day. You get closer towards the end of the day. Oh, what happens now? Oh, you know, it's towards the end of the day. I'm a little tired. It's about 2 p.m. You're going to go grab another coffee because you're running out of energy because you've been up since early in the morning. Oh, now you got to take another crap. Now all of a sudden it's the end of the day and you've shot 3.
Hey, wait a minute. Who said I wasn't taking a 10-minute piss?
Hey, it is what it is. If you were locked down in cryo freeze like Austin Powers, hey, be my guest. But the fact of the matter is, people burn so much time in the workplace that if you got rid of a lot of these wasteful meetings, I'm sure I speak for everyone that has meetings, if you cut some of this dead time down, like if I didn't have to be at the office till 9 o'clock and I can wake up at 7 and have my coffee, I can shit on my own time. Holy shit. Here's a thought, corporate America and every corporation out there, every businessman. Holy fuck, I don't have to pay my employees to shit twice a day because they don't have to have coffee breaks or they already had their coffee. Wow, like this is groundbreaking shit. Imagine that. Oh, my workers come to work and actually work because they don't want to contemplate other things. They don't hate their life and they don't hate work so bad that they sit there and they look for another job for an hour, or they see how much time they can kill out of a day because they just simply don't want to do the work that they've been given because they hate it so much, because they missed their kid's baseball game, or they missed their sister, or they missed their niece's birthday party, or their buddies got together to go golf and they weren't able to make it because they had to work late, or they had to get on a work call, or they were on call, or whatever the hell the excuse is. Like, imagine all this shit that could happen outside of work. Now you bring it back to work. And I know I usually said this isn't a political podcast. It's not. I'm just saying that this is a great step in the right direction, and I'm super excited for this change. And I know it's happening in Montreal, so it hasn't come to America yet, because when that type of mentality comes to America, it's gonna burn down. There's gonna be a lot of businessmen that claim to be Democrats that get up in arms and cry about it. There's gonna be a lot of people that are Republicans that are gonna have full blown meltdowns and like storm the Capitol for the second time over workers, over, you know, instead of, oh, I don't want to work 32 hours a week, I want to work 40. I want to be beaten to the ground and want to be old by the time I'm 40. I don't even want to be able to afford to retire. Like, that's kind of shit these people are fighting for. So like, that's where we're going. Now, after this whole long tangent, the answer to the question has already been said. This isn't going to affect worker output. In fact, it might actually better affect this worker, like the workers' output. It might actually make the game better. So I'm sure it's gonna get some backlash from people. I'm sure people are gonna be up in arms about it. If a game does flop from the studio, they're gonna blame it on this. But I promise you that whether or not a person's there for 40 hours instead of 32 has no fucking bearing on the work that they're going to put out. I promise you that. Think about how many times you, in your life, listener out there, have been exhausted, been tired, been annoyed, been angry, been miserable. How many things have you forgotten that are like minuscule? Hey, babe, you're on your way out and your partner, hey, babe, or whatever, you know, they call you your schnookums, whatever. They say, hey, like, can you pick up a gallon of milk on the way home? Sure, no problem, babe, I'll do that. You come home and the significant other or laundry detergent, did you stop? Fuck no. And then they're mad at you. And you're mad because you just had a horrible day at work. You just had a 40-minute commute. You're fucking miserable. And now you come home and you guys fight instead of... And it has nothing to do with each other. You don't fight with your significant others or your friends or anything because they actually did something wrong 85% of the time. You do it because one or both of you are irritable. And it's a tough spot to be in as a human being right now, with all the ways that work gets you from home or whatever. I know, Travis, you personally have a lot of history with people bothering you when you're not there. So I think this is going to benefit everybody greatly. And I have resounding support for this. Like, I would even take... I don't want to, but I would even take a little bit of a pay cut for a 32-hour week if you gave me a little bit more bonus somewhere else. Like, say, like, oh, we're going to pay you less hourly, but we're going to give you some sort of allowance. Once, you know, every month you save up a little bit of money into this allowance thing, and you can go use it on whatever. And it's not the same as like cutting as paying out an hourly, but it's just something that like companies could do. But yeah, I mean, I'm ecstatic. If you can't tell, I'm passionate about it. So hopefully everything goes well, and kudos to Eidos, and hopefully their next game's a hit, and I'll be supporting it.
No, definitely. And I completely agree. I'm right there with you. The fact that we live in a country where
if you're not like, especially us at age 28, I know we're not old, but I wake up in the morning, and if I'm not productive for the day, if I'm not productive in the morning, if I look at the clock and it's like 11 a.m. or noon and I realize I haven't done shit, but just sit around, like, I honestly get a little depressed, and it's 100% because of the expectations built by the capitalist economy and the American dream. And that's because there's people out there that say, oh, I've been up since 3 a.m., hit the gym, did this, had all these meetings, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, good for you, bro. That's just not me. So I know exactly, like, it's just, it's a shame that we're built to tick, to be like, if we're not constantly being productive, we're wasting a space or time.
Right. And that's what pisses me off, that the fact that we get excited for having one day where, most people don't even get 2 days anymore, like a true weekend anymore. But
yeah, everyone's doing business on Saturdays nowadays.
Right. And the sole fact of the fact that most people only have, if they're lucky, 2 days to actually do shit in their life that isn't just pile driving themselves into a desk, like metaphorically, who knows, maybe physically, literally. But the fact that we live in a society, but we live in a country where if you're critical of how you operate and want to, find different ways to potentially improve society within it, you're viewed as un-American, or you're viewed as not patriotic, or this or that. And to me, I just laugh when I hear those things. And it's just like, I'm critical because I love my country, and I want my kids to have a better life than I do. I would think every parent who does. I don't have kids, but when I do have kids, I know that's for damn sure. I want my kids to have the best life possible. If that means, hey, not necessarily worrying about tens of thousands of in student loans to try to figure out a way to make college either more affordable, or have our taxes, pay towards that, or find, different ways for our taxes to be more applicable for that, or that they don't have to worry about, God forbid, I get laid off at my job and now I have cancer, and how the hell am I going to pay for that because I don't have health insurance? Like, I want, just because you're critical of things doesn't mean that you're not passionate about them, and you're not, I think I'm very patriotic. It's because I'm critical because I care about our society and our country, and, wanting to improve those things. And that goes for, I'm like you. I think a 4-day work week makes much more sense than a 5-day. I think that provides much more of a balance to people's life, that gives people the ability to decrease the issues that may be going on with their mental health, that gives people the ability to not necessarily like, and I'm right there with you. There's times where I am working all day on shit. But then there's times where I don't have jack shit to do at work, but I still have to go. And it's like, what's the point of me being here? This wastes not only my time, wastes the company's time. Like, what's the point of me being here? I'm just going to work, I'm either going to sit there on my phone or work on, some of my either graphic design projects or my 3D modeling or whatever. Like, I could do this at home, or I could do it like, and I don't have to worry about, am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to do it? Like, no, it's like, if I don't have anything to do, what's the point? Like, you're just wasting my time. You're wasting your money. Like, just because it's just this idea of like, if you don't do that, you're a lazy piece of shit, or if you don't do this, you're like, if you don't believe in this at least 40-hour minimum work. I remember I had a boss previously who said verbatim was like, if you're not doing more than 40 hours a week, you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
In a job that I was salary and getting paid for only 40 hours, period, no matter what. And I clearly I don't work there anymore because I left. Like, but point being, like, no, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. So I don't know. Be better. we need to start taking care of our people first and foremost over the dollar. But hey, we're a capitalist society, and that's never going to happen unless we would change and, view a different economic structure or try to modify the one that we're in, or yada yada,
or just view other human beings with just a little bit of empathy. I don't even sympathy doesn't really help anyone, because people feeling bad for you doesn't help. But God forbid, just trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes for 5 fucking minutes and at least try to understand what they're going through. The world would be so much, not only would the country be so much better because we're in America, I just think the world would be so much better if everyone would do that just a little bit more.
No, trust me, I totally agree. But how dare you talk logic? How dare you say something that talks about just being better to our fellow human beings? You bastard. Anyways, though, Mike, before we wrap up the show, let's head into Party Chat. If you're new to the show, Party Chat's where we propose one question at the end of each week. Could be as simple as what's your favorite game, or what have you been playing this week, or it could be a little more in depth. There's kind of stuff we were talking about just now, about mental health and about just being better to each other and work weeks and things like that. Could be anything. And after answering on ourselves, we'll kick it over to you to hear your responses over on our Twitter or our email at gpgcpodcast or bonusaccessory@gmail.com. And we will read some of those the following week. So, last week's question: by 2025, will the discussion of Xbox's presence in the Japanese market be positive or negative, and why? And Brian G writes in saying, positive. With more titles from studios like RGG, Square Enix, Tango Works, and more coming to Xbox, that alone is enough to swing the narrative, in my opinion. Nice. I don't disagree with that. So, Mike, this week's question: what do you think are your all-time favorite maps in multiplayer titles that have been Xbox accessible throughout the brand's lifetime? So, any multiplayer game you played on an Xbox, what are some of your favorite maps that you played in? It could be a shooter, could be first person, third person, could be, a MOBA, it could be whatever. What have you played on an Xbox that you, multiplayer wise, that you're saying, man, I really always enjoyed playing on that map?
Should I do it? Should we do it like a top 5, or do you just want a 1?
Yeah, give me top 3. How about that?
Top 3?
Yeah.
All right. All right. The first one I'm gonna go with is gonna be this will be in no particular order because it's so hard to judge. I guess because it's on the Xbox version. All right. I'm going to go City Street Large because it was on Rainbow Six 3.
Oh, there we go.
But it's also on the original Rogue Spear, which was the original expansion for Rainbow Six, the original. I'm going to go with, I feel like I have to get a Halo map in there.
Naturally.
So I'll go with I was going to go Midship, but I haven't really been enjoying Midship as much. You know what? I'm still going to go with Midship. I was going to pick Warlock. I'll go Midship/Warlock, which was Wizard in H1, because they're both symmetrical. And then the third one I'm going to go with, which is a little bit more off the grid and a little bit outside the box.
There we go.
And unfortunately, some of the other maps that I do enjoy a little bit more weren't accessible on the Xbox version of this game. But I'm going to go with... it was a downloadable content, so it wasn't in the original game. So if we have to go with original game content, I will say Dust 2 from CS, because there was a Counter-Strike. There was an Xbox version of Counter-Strike. But inside of DLC, DE Inferno, which is a defusal map, which is what the DE stands for, was part of downloadable content for that game. So I'll go with Inferno from CS, DLC for the original Xbox version and the PC version.
I was actually going to put Dust 2 on there as well. I didn't, but just because I knew you were probably going to pick that, so I was like, you know what, I'll back off that one. For a Halo map, because I'm like you, got to put a Halo map in there. I think in terms of I look back fondly on just good times I've had on there. I mean, you got to do Blood Gulch.
Okay.
The amount of just incredible times I've had playing on that map is unparalleled, probably.
You know what I will say about that map? and it makes me always think of one person from our childhood, which God rest his soul. We love you, Anto, and we wish you were still here.
Yeah.
But my most fond memory of that map in particular was when I think it was me, you, Jake, and Anto all played, like we were playing as a team, and we ended up playing like big team battle in Halo 2 and played Blood Gulch.
Yes.
And I remember specifically, like I remember Anto playing like Halo, but I remember specifically playing with him on that map.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I do remember that. In terms of like a third-party map, I would say in terms of like a third-party game that is on Xbox that I really, really enjoy, may not be the best map, I guess, but one that I personally is one of my favorites to always play on, Blizzard World on Overwatch. I just love the aesthetic of that. Somebody who has grown up playing tons of Blizzard games. I just love it. I love going there. I wish there was an actual Blizzard World. Granted, don't know if I'd really want one right now in 2021, but give me that, maybe about 10 years ago. Sure, absolutely. But outside of that, my third one, It's a little tougher than I thought. Because there's multiple ones that I would want to go with. Yeah, I know, Abby. I agree. It's tough. You know what? I'm going to go with another Halo map, even though I didn't want to.
Okay.
But
you're not going to hear any complaints from me.
Beaver Creek.
Well, it depends on the
Beaver
map.
Creek.
Okay.
Just for the sole fact, granted, it's a map that will always piss me off at times, but it's one of those maps that, like, I love whenever you get an actual, like, if you get a good four squad in there and actually, like, are able to roll consistently if you're playing, like, especially if you're, like, playing CTF. To me, I have so much fun playing CTF on that map when you get a squad that's actually rolling and could, like, go in there and you could, like, finish a game off in, like, 2 minutes tops. That to me is one of those maps that I really get excited to play on because I want to try to do that. Outside of that, though, I do understand like the criticisms that come with that map, but at the same time too, like, it's one of those I just have so many fond memories playing on. But
yep, I remember being a little kid, like playing that on Halo 1, playing split screen with my brother or against my brother. So that's a good pick.
Yeah. So, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the interwebs to talk about everything we talked about today? Obviously, our favorite maps that we just talked about. All the stuff we ran through in Button Mash. All of the stuff we talked about today with Avowed and what RPG lineup's going to look like with Xbox Studios. 4-day work weeks and how that could be potentially very important, and we're very passionate about that. Where can people find you on the internet to talk about all this?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, and the second O is an X. Or you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travis, on most internet platforms, including, I had a brain fart there for a second, including at Traveless_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS _. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Traveless_, same as Twitter. And want to play some video games with me, you can do so on just Xbox Live at just regular old Travis. I'm really struggling, like, just getting words in front of themselves today. It's one of those days. Run around like crazy, just ready to wrap it up, edit this shit, and play some video games, I think. But you just play, and if you want to play video games with me, you can do so over on regular old Travis on Xbox Live. That's TRAVLESS. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and of course, PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast to stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. And Mike, that's going to do it for our episode this week. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to the doctors, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.